To grow, we need to be ready to adapt and change. So, some more good news is now Be the Good. Same positive vibes, just a name all my own. Be the Good is all about people doing good in the world while following their passions. Good for their own souls and for others. I'm Kate Cherichello, and welcome to today's episode. Let's spread a little more goodness in the world.
Today's guest is Madhurima Sappatti, and she helps people prevent and overcome burnout. She is also the host of the podcast, The Soul's Conquest, and she is coming at me today all the way from India. I'm so excited we found a time to connect. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me here. It's such an amazing opportunity to be on your podcast. It spreads a lot of joy, I think, which is understandable with the name of your podcast. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'll just ask you 5 questions and you can take them however you'd like. The first one, pretty straightforward, but I know it is quite the can of worms as well. Who are you and what do you do in your own words?
Wow. Okay. Yeah, you're right about it being a can of worms there. Hi, everyone. I am Madhurima Sappatti. I am a soul coach, a podcaster, and a writer. Initially, my journey basically started off with a very, helping people just reconnect with themselves and strengthen the bond with themselves and their souls, because I felt like that was very necessary due to the pandemic. And that's where the concept of not only my brand, my personal brand, but also my podcast, The Soul's Conquest, came from. Then I kind of niched down further because I realized that right now, the moment we are living in, a lot of people are not only embracing their creative selves and just unleashing their spirits, but also we are in dire need of perspective. And creatives, especially new creatives, face a lot of obstacles that they don't really realize that, like personally, when I was going through a burnout, I had no idea that it was a burnout. I was just like, this is anxiety and panic attacks mixed together with writer's block. And I was not aware of what burnouts was. So I think I wanted to create a platform which would help people recognize that this is a burnout. These are some of the signs of burnout and how you can overcome them. So that's me trying to help creatives overcome and prevent burnouts and unleash their creative spirits.
Thank you. What a way to take, something that you're struggling with and turn it around to help others. That's amazing. And now, Madhurima, you mentioned, from the pandemic to hear kind of how that inspired the podcast and what you were working on with your coaching. Mm-hmm. What was your path kind of across the board? Like, how did you even get this on your radar that it was maybe an industry for you to dive into?
Wow. Okay. So to be completely honest, when it came to spirituality, because that is what my entire brand revolves around, spirituality. I was quite of a spiritual person since I was young. Mostly because my parents, my family invokes that feeling of having a safe space to discuss stuff about, spirituality and what it means to be a soul and stuff like that. We would have tea times and discussions over it. So it would be pretty awesome, to be completely honest. But there was a phase in my life when I cringed away from spirituality, mostly because there was a lot of negative media and fame surrounding spirituality and gurus and stuff, and I was just like, I don't want to be associated with that. And so I kind of moved away, stepped back. But there were a lot of things that happened in my life, especially during this past 4 years. And when the pandemic hit us, it triggered a lot of anxiety. I have health anxiety, so it triggered a lot of anxiety, a lot of panic. And I was a writer, like I was working as a business development manager. And I was also working as a content writer, content manager. And I had my fair share of toxic work environments where it was just tiring. I started to hate writing, which was very scary for me because writing was a way for me to unleash whatever thoughts were kind of captured in my mind. And, it was like when you have thoughts captured around in your mind, it tinkles around like a can filled with just one stone. And then, you just shake it a lot. And that's what my mind felt like. And I couldn't write to express how I felt. So burnouts was something that scared the hell out of me because it prevented me from writing, from expressing myself. And when the pandemic hit us, unfortunately, I did not, because I was also working as a social media manager at that time. I could not step away from social media, which was like the primary source of trigger related stuff for me. So eventually I had to quit because we didn't have enough income to kind of support us. And I took that decision to just say, you know what, I think I need to end this year because I am working day in, day out without any income and I have a family to support. So I don't know, the equation doesn't work out here. So when I took a step back, at that time, personally, I had a Instagram page called Hello Anxiety, my old friend. Yeah, filled with a lot of amazing tips that helped me overcome anxiety, which I had kind of put on a pause because I was going through anxiety and I didn't feel right to kind of advise people when I couldn't take care of my own self. So when I quit my job, I went back to my social media page. But what happened was I had a lot of people reach out to me that were going through anxiety. And I realized that mental health is very, very fragile. Like what works for me doesn't necessarily work for you. And I don't have a medical degree. I'm not a psychologist, psychotherapist, any of those things. So I did not have the right to kind of tell people in regards to how they can overcome their anxiety, mostly because I knew how fragile it could be. And while my intentions were right, I didn't want to unintentionally hurt someone. So I was like, you know what? I know that my intention to help people is good. That's my final destination. But this part doesn't work. What else can I do? So again, I took a break, stepped back. And it was during this time that spirituality helped me a lot, like meditating, grounding myself, allowing my thoughts to be. So the example that I gave you, a can with one stone, you tinker it around, it makes a lot of noise, but you tinker it around to prevent it from making noise. But when you just let it be, you just put it out there and you're like, after a few minutes, it stops tinkering. After a few minutes, it calms down. And I realized meditation and spirituality was that for me. And I was like, I could help people with, spirituality, with meditation, with things on how they can ground themselves, how they can be more aware of who they are. And that's when in September, I started my personal brand. It started off with just putting out posts there. And I realized, to be honest, sorry, my dogs.
We love dogs here.
I'm glad. I kind of realized that the posts that I was putting on Instagram, they had pretty long captions, which I think kind of gives people a sneak peek of the fact that I am a writer. But I also knew people did not have a lot of time to read those captions. We have that scrolling thing going on, right? Like we have to keep scrolling. We don't always stop and read. And I was like, okay, so there's a lot of good content here that is kind of slipping away from people. How can I have them pay attention to this? And that was when I realized I can do this via podcasts. People listen to it while they are, doing stuff, taking a walk, going to work, coming back from work. So I was like, okay, so podcast is, and that's when my podcast journey started. And eventually I was actually taking a course to how to become a coach. And it was a 5-day challenge by Preston Smiles. He's an amazing coach. And I took that course, and that was when I decided to niche down. And that's when my coaching journey began, basically.
Fantastic. You made so many wonderful points, and just a couple that I wanted to go back to too. The idea of a can with a rock in it, I think that is so relatable, right? I mean, how many times have I felt like my brain is just all jumbled and won't slow down no matter what? And then you take that to bed with you and your brain, and you can't fall asleep, and it's the cycle, and that's shaking the can, and that's your brain. But you're right, when you just set it down and you step back, it will settle. And I love that comparison to your thoughts. That's really great. I also loved how you talked about the community, that you had a great community. I think that's so important. And finding it, if you don't have it, right there in front of you, reaching out, and you listen to others and yourself to figure out, okay, I know I'm not in the right place that I want to be in, but I know I can get there. So let me step back, listen, absorb the information, let my thoughts process, and then see how I can take this journey to help others as well, using your skill set. That is so fantastic, Madhurima. Congrats on all that you've done too.
Thank you so much. I do have to ask you, how did your podcast journey begin? If you don't mind me flipping the script here.
Flipping it. Oh,
yes.
You know what? It's so funny. We've done over 20 episodes now, and I don't think I've had anybody flip it on me yet. You're good.
Thank you.
See. So how it started for me was because of the pandemic. Again, I mean, I am a host and an actor, and I love hosting, but I really love hosting when I can be interacting with someone else. So I love interviewing, but I never had any of that content on camera. That mixed with the pandemic, we have so much negative news. And I mean, we needed to be kept up on current events. So it was important to also be aware, but so much negativity. And I'm such a positive, upbeat person. And I knew that people, again, going back to that mental health, we need to hear happiness. We need to be reminded that there's good in the world. And there's so many people out there doing good in their daily life, in not maybe I'm air quotes here, big newsworthy ways. Like it might not be on the front page of a paper, but they're helping people in their own communities by being themselves, by spreading joy when they can, and in small and big ways. And I hesitate to even say small ways because everything makes an impact. So put those two things together. I said, how can I spread some joy? And then I can also get some more on camera work happening. So I reached out to a couple people. I said, if I just reach out to someone, then I have to do it, because then someone else is counting on me. So I have to actually make it happen. And that really helped. And after the first one, I was so on a high. I was so much happier. And I was like, okay, this is happening now. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. And it started with just video. And then I discovered that it would make for a great podcast as well. So there you go.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. And I loved what you said about reaching out to people and then you have to do it, because personally I had an experience like that before starting out. I had batch recorded a lot of my episodes, the one that I was doing solo, but I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't feel like doing this anymore, kind of a thing. You have that sudden drop in mindset.
Yes.
Yeah. But then I was like, I have actually reached out to 3 to 4 people. They are someone from my close tribe, and I know time is of value for them and I can't do that to them. So I sat down and I ended up recording, and then here I am, still haven't stopped. Thankfully that pushed me enough to not stop recording, because it's been so much fun. Yeah.
Wonderful. And it is amazing, right? What happens when you're like, okay, I've put that feeler out. I've had someone commit. Now it's going to happen. And it helps. I think that's just a great point to make too, to our listeners too, right? It's like, if there's something that you're struggling to make happen, maybe reach out to someone, have them even just hold you accountable. I mean, the other half of my life is as a fitness instructor as well. And I know that's huge, right? If people get together to work out together, or you hire a personal trainer, it's that accountability. So in any aspect of life, you can, even if it's just a friend saying, please call me tomorrow and make sure that I've done, X, Y, Z. And that really helps.
Exactly. I hear you loud and clear, because that is so important, to keep your mindset just gunning forward to, do what you have to do, get it done.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for that question. I appreciate that.
For sure.
And you know what, you've done a great job of also, my next question is, how your world has looked different during the pandemic. And I think you have really hit that with talking about your journey through podcasting. Is there anything you want to share? Because a lot of our listeners are in the US. Maybe is there anything you want to touch on from living in India and during the pandemic? Were you stuck inside for most of it? Were you able to be out and about? Anything you want to share there?
So yeah, to be honest, our pandemic journey was very weird. we had like a 21-day lockdown, and then they were just lockdown upon lockdowns, which
Oh,
I think
wow.
was important, mostly because it helped kind of curb the spread. But like, to be honest, I did not face a lot of issues because I'm an introvert. I love being inside.
Uh,
So I was more than happy. But I think 2 years of doing that is more than enough. I
uh,
and I don't blame the government. I blame like the virus, because we can't do anything about it. It's measures that have to be taken. But to be honest, I did feel like while this pandemic was a curse, it was also a blessing in disguise, because I got a lot of opportunity to just be, you know, no worries. Like, okay, obviously I had a lot of worries. It's not that my worries suddenly disappeared just because I was being with myself, but there was also the fact that I could just calm down and sit. Like, when I lost my job, it was very hectic, and then suddenly I was like, you know what, take a break. And I took a break. I did not have to worry about anything. Like, the world already had gone to shit. Can't happen, there's nothing more that can happen. So might as well take a chill pill and relax, is what I thought. And I think that mentality has helped me out a lot personally, to just be with the things, with the people I love. Being with family was such a weird concept for a lot of people who are working, who are in that hurry burry kind of a life, like you have to rush, you can't stop. Well, now you have no other option other than to stop and sit and spend the time with the people that you're doing all of this for. Like, you're working for your family, you're working for yourself, whoever it is for. Even if you're just working for yourself, now you have the time to be with yourself. So I think that was my biggest takeaway from that.
that's very true. Madhurima, this is all about good news and, affecting positive change in people. Are there any stories you'd like to share from people you've worked with that you've seen success, you've seen them find a new or better place in life since working with them, or from colleagues throughout your work?
I do have a story to share. I won't share the name just because
Of course.
it's not. But I did work with a person who was a part of my beta program for Kasturi, which is where you can connect with yourself, reconnect with yourself, and strengthen the bond. And one of the biggest monumental changes that impacted me as well was, I saw that change happening for her from the beginning of the program to the end of the program. And seeing that change, seeing that growth was good news for me, because it meant that I had created impact, and what I was doing was worth it. Like, the things that I'm doing, like, this felt like my soul's purpose, to help people via spirituality. But I needed some proof to kind of, like, how do you say it? Write it down in the stone kind of a thing, like, make it here, make it present. And working with her did that, made it possible to for me to have that confidence in myself that I could do this and I could help many more people from across the world. But other than that, it was also a monumental thing for me because it changed her life. It created growth in her life, and more than me creating impact, it was seeing those small changes create an impact for her. So that was something that was very monumental for me, and I won't forget that day ever. The last session, I was so hyped. I was super sad also, to be completely honest. I was like, I don't want to go, but but I had a lot of fun. She had a lot of fun, and the growth in her was monumental. So I was super excited for that.
Fantastic. And then my last question, are there any quotes or mantras you find yourself saying to your clients or writing down for yourself often that you'd like to share? Put you on
Okay,
the
so
spot there.
put me on the spot there. To be honest, there is this one thing that my mom always tells me, that I try to live by, is that it's not like a quote, it's a saying in Bengali, which I won't say because I know I'll butcher the pronunciation and the wordings, but it basically says, if you live, only then can you help prosper your father's name. and like, prospering the name of your family, something that's super huge here. But the meaning behind it is, don't overwork yourself to the point that the reason for you, the reason why you're working, that you're trying to spend and invest a lot of your time and energy, goes to waste. Because if you don't survive today, you won't see the results of what you've put in for so long. So that has been a personal mantra, to be honest, mostly because that has also helped me realize how I can create impact for people who are going through burnouts, is to just tell them to, pause.
Yes.
Breathe. Look at where you've come from. See the journey that you have done, and then just pause. Because if you keep overworking yourself, not only as creatives, as entrepreneurs, as agency owners, anyone, if they keep overworking themselves, they won't live to see the results that they have been working for. So I think that is a quote that I personally live by.
That is a very good way to end here. Madhurima, tell us where we can find you online.
You can find me on my Instagram at Madhurima, that is MADHURIMA_soul coach. That's my official Instagram channel. You can also find a link to my podcast there, or you can just search for The Soul's Conquest. And yeah, I think the rest of, you'll find a lot of stuff on my Instagram. So just go crazy. Kind of like ration a bit of time, be like 1 hour I'll spend on Madhurima's profile, and then there will be a lot of information for you to go through. So
yes.
I hope you're ready.
And that'll also be in the show notes as well. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my story. It's really beautiful.
And some beautiful, beautiful thoughts, quotes, and actionable items to take from here. Thank you. And have a good night, because as it's morning here, it is night there for you.
Yes, I hope all of you guys had a lot of fun. Be sure to listen to Kate's podcast, because it's all super amazing. Not only because I've been here and I'm not biased, not at all. Definitely check her out.
Thanks so much for listening to Be the Good with Kate Cherichello. Whether you're listening on YouTube or via podcast, it would mean the world if you liked, subscribed, and or left a review. You heard about the good? Now go out and be the good in your life this week. If you have stories of good news that need to be shared, please send me a message. Thanks again, and have a great week.